So some potential replies that we could give to this argument here. So one reply you might give is that you might just be more optimistic about the possibility of drawing boundaries between boys and girls in ways that avoid these problems. So you might think that maybe there is some force to this argument that if the way that we segregate causes these rights conflicts, then we shouldn't segregate in that way. But you might think that there are other ways that we could choose to segregate between boys and girls, or men and women, that are going to be more reliable or more appealing in terms of how they avoid these potential problems that may be specific to certain ways of how we draw boundaries. So another way that we could choose to differentiate between different categories could be to use gender identity rather than sex markers. So this is something that's very controversial at the moment. I'm going to touch on this in future lectures, but when it comes to researching this question in particular, I would encourage everybody to be pretty careful in terms of the sources that they look at, because when it comes to issues that are politically controversial, there's going to be a lot of information that's out there, and it's just a matter of working out which information is trustworthy, which information is coming from reliable sources. So I encourage you all to be pretty careful when it comes to which sources you choose when researching this essay. So we could use self-gender identification rather than sex markers. However, this itself is controversial when it comes to justice in the sense of fair play, because it's often felt that transgender women are thought to have advantages in sports that violate these fair play concerns. So the idea is that for transgender athletes, if they have been through, for example, a male puberty, then they might retain some of the advantages that they have had on the basis of biological differences, even if their gender identity is female. So again, this is going to be something that's like pretty tricky in terms of how to resolve this issue, because on the one hand, we want to have a level playing field, and on the other hand, we want to there's a value of inclusion here, that especially if people are being excluded or forced to take medically unnecessary drugs in order to compete, it seems like both of these are bad results, and we want to try and find a policy that avoids both of the kind of potential pitfalls here. It's important to notice as well that when it comes to the issue of transgender people competing in sport, the answer about what the policy ought to be might be different across different sports. So we see here we've got a picture of Noelyn van Leuven, who has there's recently been some controversy about her because she is a transgender woman who competes in darts, and has recently won some competitions, and so there's been a big kind of reactionary response to her competition. However, we might think that the advantage that she has for having gone through a male puberty might be pretty minimal, given that the kind of it's unclear exactly what physical advantage that men have over women when it comes to throwing darts, for example. Whereas if it was something that was a kind of very physical contact sport, with a lot of emphasis on muscle mass, then the argument might be pretty different.